This week we are covering procedures, user-defined functions, and triggers. Once you read the chapter in the book, you are going to go ahead and go through the lecture demo. And we begin kind of by a little overview on the procedures, user-defined functions, and triggers, similarities and differences. And then I put them in kind of a table so you can just look at it and see another way that they are similar or different. And then we go through how to create and use or run procedures. And then we do basically the same thing for user-defined functions and triggers. And as all the other lecture demos, when there is an interactive example for you to practice with, I do include a link to that. However, you aren't going to find quite as many of those in this particular lecture demo, just because of the nature of what we are talking about. Although all of the examples that you see here, you could actually copy them and paste them right into a new query window in SSMS, and you could run them. And that is actually a good idea so that you can understand kind of how they work and how you create them. Once you get done going through all of this, and there is quite a bit of information here because we are going through 3 different types of objects that you create: procedures, user-defined functions, and triggers. Once you get done with that, you're going to go through the textbook assignment. And that gives you practice, basically creating all 3. There are 3 different tasks, and you can see that I've got multiple scenarios under the different tasks with videos that go with each one. This will give you a pretty good feel for how to create and use the different objects that you are working with this week. And then you are going to work on the last part of your final project. And you will be creating your own procedures, your own user-defined functions, and your own triggers. And I do have an example from my fictional bakery of what I did for this particular project, so you can have something to look at. But basically, you need to create a procedure that retrieves and displays data. You need a second procedure that takes at least one input parameter and retrieves the results. You need a third procedure that takes an input parameter, at least one, and also includes an output parameter, at least one. And then finally, you need a fourth procedure that uses the return statement to return a value. So in total, you need 4 stored procedures. Then you also need user-defined functions. You need a user-defined function that creates a scalar function that accepts a single argument. And then you need a table function that accepts at least one argument. So you need 2 functions. Finally, you need some triggers. So what you're going to do is create an archive or a transaction table, either one. And then you're going to have a trigger that is going to add deleted data from whatever table you deleted it from into a transaction table or an archive table. either one. Then you need an insert trigger that will take that data that you've inserted and put it into the transaction table or the archive table. And then you need an update trigger that basically takes whatever it is that you've updated and puts it into a transaction table or an archive table. Now, the example that I have here, if we take a look, you can see that I have created a transaction table for customers and it's empty. And then I have added a column called activity. And then I start with my insert trigger. And so you can see these are all of the columns that I have in that table. And then from whatever data they've inserted, I'm filling in the values. And then I am inserting those values into the customer transaction table. And then for that last column that I created called activity, you will notice that I'm just inserting the word inserted because the row was inserted. Okay, so there's no column that I'm setting equal there. I'm just putting some text into that. And then you can see I actually insert a value into customers. And so that value should automatically go into customer transaction with the word inserted. So I'm then displaying what I have in customer transaction. Then I do a delete, which is very similar. The difference is that I am grabbing the data from the temporary deleted row. And for activity, I'm entering deleted. Okay, and then I actually do delete a row. And then I select everything from customer transaction. And so I should see an inserted row and a deleted row. And then I basically do the update. Okay, so that is how I did the transaction table. And you could also call it an archive table if you want. And that is your last milestone. So once you complete that, you are done with the final project. And that is pretty much all we have for this week. Many students do find triggers to be a little bit more challenging because you create them and then they run behind the scenes. So if you have questions, run into problems, let me know. I will definitely need to see your scripts. So you will have to send those to me. Otherwise, it's going to be really hard for me to problem solve for you. If you need some additional explanations on anything that we've covered this week, I do have links to several videos that are online and also some additional articles. And you may find this one especially useful because it is on triggers. Okay, and so it's a very simple one on triggers that you can read through. And this is a SQL file that creates the database and the tables that are used in that trigger exercise. So you could actually run this code and kind of walk through the exercise. Again, if you have questions or problems, let me know and have a great week.